Well, hello, Julie.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Anytime.
uh, are you enjoying the holidays? Did you do anything new or fun?
Well, we had four of our five kids here and our grandkids. So we live in Vegas. So we had lots of fun things to do. Vegas is a fun place to come during the holidays. We,
Is it?
yeah, we went down to the Bellagio. They have these beautiful gardens where they made like the Coke polar bears out of flowers and huge gingerbread houses and trains and trees. And they make lots of things out of flowers, real pine trees. It was gorgeous.
At the Bellagio.
And then they have
Wow.
the fountains set to Christmas music, and it was so fun.
Oh, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, and people watching, that's always fun.
Oh, yeah. Have you done this before at the holiday?
Not at Christmas time. This is our second Christmas here. We lived in Texas before, so
Okay.
and this was the first time most of our kids made it back, and they had lights out at the Las Vegas Speedway that you could drive under all the bleachers, and they just had it decked out. It was really cool. 5 million lights.
5 million lights?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience.
Yeah. And the weather was like in the 60s. So it was
Oh, that's
perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
Boy, you make me want to go to Vegas. I didn't know they had all that.
Oh, they have anything. They have everything. It's great.
Wow. Well,
Oh.
today I wanted to talk about intimacy in relationships. And can you tell us what intimacy is and if there are different types?
You bet. So in my line of work, a lot of people just think intimacy when they hear the word intimacy, it's all about sexual intimacy, but there are so many different kinds of intimacy that are not sexual. Like there's emotional intimacy, there's intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and there's physical intimacy, which doesn't include sexual intimacy, but just like holding hands, touching, like rubbing someone's back. It's like there's so many different kinds of intimacy, but I think we do that word a disservice because we automatically jump to, oh, this is just sex. But
Yeah.
intimacy is so much more than that. It's really just a close and a familiar and an affectionate or loving personal relationship with another person that really helps us, love them, have some connection and knowledge about who another person is.
Yeah. So, can you describe maybe the different types and give
Yeah,
examples?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, something that I love to tell my clients is that intimacy is for us. It's not to make someone else feel a certain way, although they always usually feel more connected. But it's something that we can have and enjoy for ourselves. And it's something that we can create. So, for example, emotional intimacy is when you identify and share your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions so you can understand yourself better, but also help someone else understand you and your perspective. Because emotional intimacy, it promotes trust, communication, transparency, openness, closeness, vulnerability. And I think a lot of people really don't have the skill set of sharing their emotions with others. We always try to show that we're the strong person. We don't have to be so emotional. We can be in control of our emotions, but oftentimes we're just kind of shutting our humanness down and shutting ourselves off from others and from them getting to know us. So, emotional intimacy could look like several different things. So, like, I mean, how often do you notice that you're feeling an emotion and then you share that emotion with your partner?
I think I do.
Mm-hmm.
I probably do too much.
Well, and who knows? But I mean, that's just a skill that some people have to be able to say, I'm feeling frustrated right now, or I'm feeling angry, and this is why, or I'm just feeling kind of meh, and to be able to share that with someone, I think helps them understand you as a person and it can create this closeness between the two of you. Like another example is sharing how you feel by using words that identify and explain the emotion. Like
Oh,
my husband, he's a very happy up kind of person and and I can tell in his body language And I'm like, well, what does that feel like? And he can just say, well, I just feel warm all over. I feel tingly, or I feel, you know, any type of thing. I'm more of a person who kind of subdues my emotions, and I try and just keep them all even. And so it's really interesting for me to ask people what that emotion feels like, because our emotions feel different. We're different people. So different people feel emotions in different ways.
And do you tell him what your emotions feeling like?
I'm I'm getting better at it.
Okay.
I think I always was the one who was trying to appear strong, and I had this judgment that, you know, people who are emotional or share their feelings are weak, but they're not. They're just having this human experience and sharing it with others. And I've really learned to come to appreciate people who feel their emotions and express them, and what a gift that is to the world.
Yeah.
And I'm striving to become more like that, because I'm one that would notice it and then just kind of stuff it down because it was a little uncomfortable for me.
Right.
So
So
it's,
when you explain it to your husband, does he appreciate it?
oh yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
I had no idea, because we're such different people, that he's like, wow, that's really interesting. And I go, yeah, right. That is.
Can you share an example of what you might have shared?
Um, like over Christmas, I think I was feeling some shame because I'm not this bubbly, excited mom and grandma, but I am one who will take a grandchild aside and read them a book, or I'll just sit and
Aw.
have a little conversation with them. And so shame feels like this heaviness that washes over me. And how that's so interesting. But when I was like really not judging myself and doing what I felt was, I don't know, authentic to me, it felt like just content and peaceful, like sitting at the table with my granddaughter coloring things and just saying funny stuff. She's 4, and just talking and realizing that I don't have to be this happy, bubbly person. That's not my nature. But if I forced myself to be that way, it would just feel weird. So,
Yeah.
really honoring my emotional energy and who I am, I think is really amazing.
You were being you.
Yeah. And I think I've spent so many years judging myself that I wasn't the happy, bubbly person like my husband, but I have gifts to give the world just like he does.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Do
But
people
I,
say that they want you to be more bubbly, or is that just in your own brain?
it's mostly in my own brain now. Before, I think I was trying to make him more calm and like less talkative. And he was like wanting to make me more energy centered and talkative. And we were trying to make each other the way we were, and it didn't
Yeah.
work. There was so much
Wow.
judgment on both parts. But then when we realized that, oh, his energy level is, he loves to be with people. That's how he recharges. He's always meeting people. There's no strangers to him. And I'm more picky. Like, I can be very outgoing, but I like one-on-one. Like, if I'm at a social event, I'll stick with one person for a longer amount of time, where he just
Yeah.
goes from group to group and talks to everybody. And I'm more selective, but there's nothing wrong with either way.
I'm like that too. And in fact, because my husband sounds like your husband, we'll go to parties and he will go find somebody that he thinks that I might want to talk to, and he'll go start a conversation with them. And one time he went and he was talking about, because we're vegetarians, so he started
Mm-hmm.
talking about being vegetarian, and this one person was a vegetarian, I think, and he goes,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you have to meet my wife. And then he put us together, and then he was able to go walk around while I stuck with this one person. But it's very nice. And he's done it other times too, because he knows I'm kind of shy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I like the
So
one-on-one too.
interesting.
I like the party, the people around, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you. I want to focus on just one person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just go work the room.
Right. Yeah. And that's not, if I tried to follow him around, I would be exhausted by the end of the evening. So I think honoring our energy and what we feel is authentic to us is really important. Like, if it's not normal for you to express a lot of emotion, just start a little at a time. I mean, just share, like, hey, I'm feeling disappointed right now, and this is what it feels like to me, or this is why. And just being consistent and sharing pieces of ourselves, because I think really connecting on an emotional level with our partners really helps us bring us more joy and contentment in the relationship, and it brings us closer together. I mean, it's no fun to, share the good, the bad, and the ugly all at the same time, but it's so important. It's
Yeah.
just like, sometimes my husband says stuff that I don't like. And instead of asking him what he meant in the moment, I will make up this story about whatever he said. In an emotional intimacy is like just kind of holding space for them to talk. And instead of me going off and making up a story about what he's saying, ask him. Like instead of making up something in my head, it's like, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that, which is a real skill, I think, to develop. Because I'm used to getting offended and just being mad for the next couple of days. And
Yeah.
he had,
Yes. I'm
so
sure that's common, right?
yeah. So I think emotional intimacy is really something that really yields a lot of benefit when we practice it. And it's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that I saw something that John Gottman, you know who he is,
Mm-hmm.
posted. And he said, I was going to read this to you. It says, no matter how good your partner is, they're not a mind reader.
Yeah.
Right?
So true. And I think probably the first 20 years of our marriage, we expected each other to read our minds as like, we've been together this long. He should know or she should know. And it's so funny because my husband loves to snuggle in bed. And I didn't grow up in a family that ever snuggled or touched each other for that matter. I mean, we were very separate humans, and his family was quite the opposite. And so he would be upset when at night I wouldn't just come and snuggle up next to him before we would roll over and go to sleep. And I'm like, this isn't even in my realm. And so he would expect me to remember something that I never learned or created a pattern.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
finally he's like, I guess I just have to like remind you. I'm like, that would be so helpful because I can't read your mind and I don't remember this part. But now it's like every night we snuggle, and he loves to
Oh,
snuggle in the
wow.
morning too. But see, that's not on my radar because sometimes he'll get up at 5 and I won't get up until 6. But I'm totally happy to snuggle with him for a few minutes before he gets up and gets ready for work. And it's like, okay, I can't read your mind. And like this morning I forgot, and he came into the bathroom like,
You
I
forgot to
forgot to
snuggle.
snuggle with you. Sorry. And he's like, oh, no big deal. But because that's important to him. And it's great for me. I mean, if I remember, but I can't read his mind. And so I've just asked him to remind me. And
How does
sometimes
he do that? How does he remind you?
he would
What
just
does he
say, hey,
say?
let's snuggle. I mean, I want
Oh,
to
okay.
snuggle. This is
That's
like telling me
easy.
what he wants. It's like, okay. And if I don't want to snuggle, then I'll say, I don't have time or I'd rather not or whatever. But I don't remember to read minds, and I'm not really good at it.
I like how he just says, let's snuggle, and then you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds so simple, right?
Yeah. It's
But
like,
people,
tell
I
your
think, are
spouse what you
afraid to
want.
say things like that. They're afraid to say what they want,
Right. And I
right?
think, we can always put that bid out and they can say no, but at least we told them what we wanted, and then we can do, with whatever answer they give us, we can figure it out from there.
Yeah. So do you have another example of another, um, what do you call it? Another way
Emotional.
of being intimate? That was emotional,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
intellectual. I always thought
Yeah.
this one was an interesting one because my husband has a doctorate degree. He loves learning. I always tease him that he graduated from 23rd grade because, he just he loves education. And I quit after my bachelor's degree because I'm like, this is dumb because it just wasn't very fun for me. I didn't really enjoy college. I didn't see the point of having to take all the classes I didn't want to take, like math, and humanities was okay. But I mean, I always had this idea that he was smarter than me because he went to more school. And
Okay.
so I didn't really show up and share things that I knew with him, because intellectual intimacy is when you share your intelligence and your wisdom through your thoughts and your ideas. It's like we can enjoy similarities that we have with our partners, and we can also respect the differences of opinions that we have, and we can be our true selves around them. I mean, I didn't really feel free to share my thoughts and opinions about like current events or I don't know, ideas that friends would bring up, or even just, I don't know, stuff that I would read in the paper. Cause I always thought, oh, he already knows the answer. He's so smart, blah, blah, blah. Well, it sounds really cerebral, but I think sharing our intellect with each other helps us improve our own mental health. And as we explain and develop greater confidence in our ideas and our thoughts about certain things, it just helps us get to know each other even more. So, like in the first decade of our marriage, I never really shared a lot of what I know, but I'm really good at mechanical things. Like he's awful at fixing things or like putting together things. It's not his forte, but like I can fix our washing machine. I can fix parts on the car. I'm
You
more the
can?
mechanical person. Yeah, super fun.
Did you learn all that when you were young?
Yeah, I had an auto shop class in high
You did?
school. I followed my dad around the garage and learned how to fix things. I mean, I can figure things out.
Wow. I never knew
Yeah.
that about you. That's
Oh,
really something. And your
yeah.
husband doesn't do that.
No, his dad was a business owner. I mean, and so he's more the cerebral. I'm more like the hands on. And I remember one time my husband and our daughter got her a nightstand and we're putting it together, and they've been in there for an hour. And they're like, something's not working. Will you come look at it? And I walked in and I spotted it, like it's backwards. That part should be turned around. Like I could see it. And they're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you just do this in the first place? But it's like, give them an opportunity to work together. But we each have our gifts. And I mean, when I'm thinking that I'm not smart and that he's more smart than I am, there's a disconnect there. But we each have our areas where we're really good at stuff. Like I'm a great cook and he's a great cook. He taught me how to cook a lot. But then when we had kids, he would do more of going to work, doing the things, and I was the homemaker and stayed home and cooked. And so just little tricks of the trade that I learned throughout the years. I mean, it's just fun to say, okay, an easier way to do this is, and he's like, oh, thanks. I didn't think of that.
Oh, and that's how you say it. An easier way to do this would be because that's so kind.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, I there was times when I was bossy and said that's not the right way, but in my opinion, that would be an easier way. But maybe for him, it's not easier.
Yeah.
So an easier
Did
way for
you?
me to do it looks like this.
Okay. Did you ever tell him that you didn't feel as smart as he
Oh
was?
yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah,
have. And what did
I
he say to
have.
that?
He's like, that's fascinating because he said, you give insights that I have never thought of. And see, if I already made up this story that I'm not very smart, I'm not going to, or that he already knows the answer, I'm not going to share it because I don't want to feel dumb. But he
Right.
said, whenever you say stuff, he goes, I think it's quite profound because your brain works different than my brain. And it's
Yeah.
true. And so I think that surprised him. So now we're more open at sharing our insights about politics, religion, family, just basic values. And it's just more of an enriching experience because we don't judge each other. We're like, oh, that's really interesting.
So when did all this start for you two? How long ago did you start communicating in this way?
Yeah, there was a lady named Carol Tuttle, and she developed this program called Living Your Truth or Dressing Your Truth. And she categorizes people into 4 energy types. And he's a type 1, which is the life of the party, the energy, the full of ideas. And then there's a type 2 who's more of sensitive, behind the scenes, really concerned with relationships. Then there's the type 3 that they're just going to get it done at whatever cost, running over people, but they're very productive. And then there's the type 4 who's more just kind of sits back and notices and really has a critical eye and can improve things, like can look at something and see how we can make it better. So I'm a type 4, which is the lowest energy type. He's a type 1, which is the highest. And I think that was the beginning of really recognizing our gifts that we bring to the world as individuals. And then I think the second thing was listening to Brene Brown about
Oh, yeah.
shame. And that was really, I think we would listen to these they weren't podcasts, but like her speeches together. And then we just like pause and talk about it. And I think that's where we really learned how to be vulnerable with each other and to really just be able to talk without being defensive.
Yeah.
Listening to her stuff and reading her books, I think was life changing for
And
us.
how long ago did you say that was?
Probably, I would say at least 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. A long time ago.
Yeah, because she
Okay.
did this series called The Power of Vulnerability. And that was just, we bought it on CD back when CDs were the
Oh,
thing,
way
and
back then, huh?
yeah, way back then. And which was great. We just stick it in the car and listen on whenever we go driving and just be able to talk about it. And it really helped us learn how to be just real with each other and not pick on each other, because we spent the first, I don't know, 20 years of our marriage just saying how the other person was wrong and how we were right. Well, that's not beneficial.
Now you both have wonderful communication skills with each other.
A lot better than it used to be. Sometimes, I mean, we still have our issues, of course. I mean, we had one over the weekend, but that's okay. It's just like that's what helps us have conversations, is when things are a little messy. It's like, okay, we need to talk about this and see where each other's coming from. And it works beautifully, which is, it's just another way to be intellectually intimate. Is like, this is what I think. And then he says, this is what I think. And then we figure it out together. We share our thoughts and ideas about things and situations.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just not perfect
No, and it
because we're
doesn't need to
human,
be.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
can't beat ourselves up if it's not. We just have to, we have an awareness, I guess, that, oh, what just happened here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so just not being afraid to share things that we know and what things that we believe. It's totally
Okay.
fine. They get to take it for what it's worth for them.
Okay. So that's the intellectual. No, yeah, that's the
Mhm.
intellectual one. What's the next one?
Yeah, spiritual. This is a
Okay.
fun one because, like, spirituality involves recognizing, believing, and sensing that there is something or someone greater than us in this universe. So, like a higher power. And it's also the quality of being concerned for the human soul. So, like, some examples of spiritual intimacy would be to like describe to your partner how you connect with God or your higher power. I mean, a lot of people go out into nature and they just talk, or they actually kneel down and pray. I mean, depending on whatever religion you have. I mean, some people are praying 6 times a day. I mean, it's so cool. And just really telling your partner how you connect with your higher power through meditation, through manifestation, whatever, through reading scripture. A lot of people have different ways to connect with their higher power.
Okay. And then you share that with your partner.
Yeah. It's just like, this is what I do. And this is how
It
I
doesn't mean you
feel.
have to do it together.
No,
You can just
no,
do it by yourself and then just share. That's
totally.
interesting.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think that they have to be of the same religion or the same beliefs to have that intimacy. But really, it's just being willing to be known, to know yourself and let someone else know you.
Yeah.
And I mean, even expressing your beliefs of what you believe your higher power thinks and feels about you. Like, how does God feel about me? Well, I believe that he loves me. I believe I'm a child of his. I believe that, you know, he's there to help me. And other people might have a different vision of what their higher power feels about them, but that's what I'm choosing to believe and
Okay.
just sharing that. And I think that gives our partners, some insight into how we see ourselves in this universe.
And how do you go about sharing that with your partner? Do you just suddenly walk up to them and just start saying, "Hey, let me tell you something"? I mean, how do you
How
get into
whatever
that
feels
conversation?
natural to you. It's like, oh, I was praying or I was thinking about this. Like, I get lots of interesting thoughts in the shower, like
Oh, me too.
inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is what I was thinking about in the shower. And he's like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, it doesn't really matter how he responds, but for
Yeah.
me to feel comfortable just saying, this is what I think, like, in the way that we raise our kids, it's like, maybe if one kid's struggling, we'll say, well, what do you think about this? Like, how could we help them along this path of where they are in their lives right now? And just be able to draw on, that inspiration if we believe it comes from somewhere else, like the greater power in our lives, to just really just be able to talk about it. It's like, I was really thinking about this. What do you think? Or I just feel really strongly about this, and this is why.
Yeah.
And so even telling them what I do to strengthen my relationship with my higher power is, and it helps me too. It's like it brings it into consciousness in my mind, and then I become better at it when I share. It's like, this is what I do to connect with that higher power.
I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, telling our partners what we believe in.
Yeah.
Do we believe in reincarnation? Do we believe in an afterlife? Do we believe in a life before here? Do we just believe in this life? Do we believe that there is a power in the universe that guides us and places us in places that we need to be in?
Yeah. What happens if your partner doesn't agree with you about that?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people might just shut down, but why would we expect them to agree with everything that we are or do?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to agree with us on anything if they don't want to.
Yeah. That's
They get
true.
to have their beliefs, we get to have ours, and we just kind of agree to disagree.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
And
and
so
that might be a deal breaker for some people. I don't know.
it could be.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next kind of intimacy? Is there one more? Is it one more or two more?
Physical intimacy. Now, I always, when I thought of physical intimacy, I was always thinking of sex
Right.
but those are two different things. Like physical intimacy was something that I was not attuned to when we got married. He was very huggy touchy, and I was more like, why would I touch you? That's just weird, because my family was not a touchy huggy family. And I remember one time we were watching TV, and he's like, why don't you like scratch my back when we watch TV? And I'm like, why would I? I mean, we were in such opposite places, and neither of us were wrong, but it caused me to become aware of my thoughts about physical touch. It's like, it doesn't take much to reach over and hold his hand, or to tickle his arm, or to play with his hair. He just loves that. And I know that. And now I get to bring that into consciousness. Me, I like to not be touched when I watch TV. I want to focus. I don't want something distracting me. I don't want anything tickling me. So, but I'm happy to tickle his arm or his hair or whatever. But
what about like holding hands?
oh, I love holding hands. We hold
Would you
hands.
do that when you're watching TV? Would you like that? Or is that too much?
I just don't like a lot of
You just want to be still.
Yeah, I like to be still. That's my energy. I love stillness, and he loves motion. So we can still both get what we want, which is super fun.
So holding hands would work for him too.
Oh yeah, and we hold hands watching TV. We'll hold hands in the car, on a walk, at church. We go to church if we're sitting together, at the movie. I mean, just everywhere we go, we like to hold hands.
That sounds like us too.
We like that connection, and just like laying my head on his shoulder if we're watching TV, or snuggling in bed, or I mean, giving him a kiss before he leaves, or if I leave, him giving me a kiss. It's like something that we have started a pattern for.
And you're okay with all of that?
Totally.
Because it doesn't feel weird.
No, I mean, it took a while for me to get into it, because it's like my parents didn't hold hands. Oh. I didn't have that example. And so I just had to learn that, okay, what do I want? And I wanted to be connected. I wanted to feel connection physically to him at several points during the day. So we decided that we wanted to have a marriage where we were physically connected. And
I like that.
Yeah. And I remember one time we decided whenever he'd come home from work, we would hug for 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time.
That is a long time.
But it was a really fascinating experience, because it just kind of like let us know that we were there for each other, and we hugged for 10 seconds, and the kids hated it. They're like, because they wanted to play with dad. And I'm like, nope, this is our time, 10 seconds.
So they're just standing there waiting. Are you done with your hug yet?
Yep. Yeah. And we let them know that our relationship was the most important. We love our kids, but our relationship with them came next, because really they're all grown and gone. So we just have each other. And we worked on that relationship through all of these types of intimacy so that when they're gone, it's like, man, we really love each other. We're not strangers.
That's so nice.
Yeah. Someone gave us that advice before our first one was even born. It was like, you guys make sure that you work on your relationship. It's the most important relationship. And yes, you'll love your kids, but you're in the end going to be left with each other. So work on that.
I bet your kids love that about you guys now, that you work on your relationship.
I think so, because my parents argued a lot. My husband's parents seem to have a good relationship and they held hands and stuff, but I really think it's a gift that we can give to anyone around us. I mean, how many of us when we were younger would see a cute little old couple holding hands in a restaurant? They're like, "Oh, they're so cute. I want to be like that." Well, yeah, you can start now. No matter how old you are, how long you've been married or in a partnership, you can always start now.
You can just decide to do that whenever you want.
Yeah, and it takes some effort and it takes some intention and it takes work and thought, but that's okay. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, you kind of have to practice it.
Mm-hmm.
Practice it until it feels real. And then you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is we can have so much intimacy in our lives and not even have to worry about the sexual intimacy. If people want sexual intimacy, all these other areas are going to help that even be better. But it's just, there's so many other ways to have intimacy besides sex. And I don't know that we think of that as a human race.
Yeah, I know that you've done this, but we like to have dances.
Mm-hmm.
We just, a song comes on and we'll just start dancing in the living room.
Uh-huh.
And it's great. And we do it through the whole song.
Yeah.
We just do dances everywhere. And no matter what room we're in, sometimes in the bathroom, we'll just start dancing.
Of course. Yeah. And it just makes life fun and light. And you feel connected because you're sharing in this amazing thing together.
Yeah. Is there another type of intimacy that we didn't talk about, or is that?
Well, we have the sexual intimacy, which is, it includes a component of emotional intimacy. I mean, you can engage in sexual acts like intercourse and not have intimacy.
Right.
Yeah. Or you can also have sexual intimacy while not having intercourse. So, I mean, I think people think that it has to look this way and we can only have intimacy if there's intercourse, but that's not true. There's so many ways to have sexual intimacy without having intercourse, like making out. That doesn't include intercourse, but that's a sexual type of intimacy. Or exploring your partner's body and what you love about it. There's no sex involved there, but it's just really just being curious and appreciative of the other person, but in a more vulnerable sexual way.
Yeah.
I mean, lay in bed naked together, that doesn't include sexual intercourse, but that's a sexual type of intimacy because you're being more vulnerable and this is who you're choosing to share your body with.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of ways to do that. I know that we scheduled, when we had kids, we scheduled sex because it was an important thing for us. And so we said Tuesday afternoons. We even told our kids, you're not coming home between 1 and 4 on Tuesday. That's our time, whether we had sex or not, but the phones were off, the doors were locked, and they knew.
But you didn't tell them why.
Oh no, we told them why.
They
were older. I mean, they were high school where they would come home, And so they're like,
don't
go
like
near
a tie
house.
on the door.
Some kids don't understand cues. So we had a sign.
What?
It said,
you did not.
We did. And it said, do not enter, but sometimes they just didn't even see the sign. I mean, we had 4 boys. They just didn't notice things sometimes.
But you really did put a sign on the outside of the door?
Because we never knew if they would actually come home or not. So.
And did it say we're having sex?
No, it just says, like
other people might have seen
I can't remember if it said, please do not knock, or I can't remember. I have it still. We need to laminate it.
Oh yeah. You actually put a sign on the door.
Yeah.
Please do not enter.
Yes.
Between the hours of 1 and 4. Yeah, and you guys were going a long time. 1 to 4. That's a long time.
Like we didn't want to have to worry about anyone but us.
Okay, and so did that work? Did you say that worked? It did
work because we planned a time. And I mean, when they were little, of course, we didn't tell them it was nap time or whatever, but we made sure that we had a babysitter, or that was just our time to have a date during the day because my husband worked in the morning and at night. And then we go out on a date every Friday night. But even just if we didn't have sex, it's like we need to do the budget, or we need to like get budget. This. I mean, it was just our time together without interruption. Like his friends knew to not invite him to lunch on that day during that time. I mean, it's just like, this is how important our relationship is. And this is a boundary that we have around our relationship. And it's us, it's our time. And so whatever that looks like for anyone who wants to plan time, it can be whatever you want. We didn't always have sex, but we knew that was a guaranteed 3 hours that week.
And so it was once a week for 3 hours. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now back to the sign. Was this sign on the outside of the house, or was this sign on the outside of your bedroom door?
Bedroom door.
Okay, so the kids could come in, and then you said you got a babysitter. So the babysitter.
No, like if we have ever needed a babysitter, like if I had 1 or 2 kids at home, I would take them over to the neighbor's house.
Oh, I thought the babysitter came over,
that would be weird.
Oh, would it?
The house had to be empty. No kids, no nothing, no phones.
Okay, I love that plan. I love that you had a 3 hour time or window every Wednesday or whatever it was.
Yeah, and sometimes we would listen to a podcast and just talk about it. I mean, it was just a time for us to connect in all of these different ways without interruption.
And do you still do this?
Well, we don't plan it, but it happens naturally since all of our kids are gone. So we'll just have, I don't know, we have at least 2 hours a day to just sit and chat and do whatever we want. So it's
wow, 2 hours a day to sit. Do you actually do that? Sit and chat?
Not for 2 hours, but I mean, we have dinner together. We fix dinner together. We watch a TV show together. We'll talk about our kids. We'll talk about our relationship. We'll talk about our goals. I mean, so it just happens more often. And if we decide we don't want to be bothered, then we just turn off our phones. So we're not going to be interrupted during our conversation.
Oh, I love that. We used to do something called island time.
Oh,
and so we would sit at our island, pretend we're on an island, and we would turn off all electronics and then just talk. We did that for a while. That might have been after we went to Gottman. So I was going to tell you, we went to Gottman, and have you ever been to the Gottman Institute?
I haven't, but I love their stuff.
Yeah. So we went in 2019, and it was the best time ever. It was just a couples communication workshop type of thing in Seattle for a couple days in a hotel. And I was going to show you, they give you these cards, and there's like 5 or 6 different sets of cards.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is backwards.
I have the app. Nope, it's perfect.
Yeah. And they have like open-ended questions that you ask yourself. I was going to just read you a couple. These are the kinds of questions that we started doing. I think we did 1 card each a day. So we'd sit down at the island and do 1 a day for each. So this one said, if you could be a superstar in any sport, which sport would you choose and why? Yeah. So we would talk about that. And I'll just give you one more. If you could change 1 characteristic about yourself, what would it be and why? And so there's like there's 5 or 6 decks of these cards. We went through all of them a couple times. So
that's amazing, because we go out on dates or go out to dinner and we watch people. And so many people you could tell that they're married, but they don't even interact. They don't even talk. Like they're on their phones the whole time. And that is not intimacy unless they're texting each other, but I highly doubt they are.
Yeah. Some might be, we don't know.
But I mean, it's great to have a stack of those cards in the car. And just when you have to go run errands and it's a 15-minute drive, just how much more fun and how much more closeness you can create by just talking about some of those questions.
Yeah. And today, so I have this game that I got called, I think it's called Tabletop or Table Talk or something. And I was going to use it for parties. But we don't really have any gatherings now. So I thought, where is that deck? And I found it last night. And so we said, today we're going to start, and we're going to just pick 1 question and ask each other the question and start doing that again, because we haven't seen any of these questions yet. And it's a humongous deck. So I thought that would be fun. And then yesterday, I don't know if you consider this intimate, but Mark said, "Do you want to play a game?" So we
Oh,
played sequence.
totally.
We played
Yeah.
the game sequence. And he
Well,
said,
and
"Do you
it's
want to
you
play?"
connecting.
Yeah. And he goes, "Do you want to play at 3?" And this was like at 2. I
Uh-huh.
was I was pretty tired. And I was
Uh-huh.
on the couch. I'm like, okay. And I thought, well, that was really nice of him to ask to actually play a game. So I said, okay.
Mhm.
And so we did. And we actually finished it in half an hour and he beat me. But we like doing stuff like that. And on Christmas Day, we I like to do a project. We've done this a couple of years. We haven't done it since 2019, but we went and got the makings of a mirror
Mm.
and we made a coastal mirror. So with the backing, and I have all the shells and I have sticks and I have all the stuff. So I do part of it and he does part of it. And then it's beautiful. Our mirror, we have mirrors all over our house that we created ourselves. And it's just fun, I think, to do a project together,
Yeah.
right? That's a
I
good
love
way.
that. Yeah. And I mean, projects for us end up in frustration sometimes. And so we've learned that those kinds of things don't build intimacy, but every
Oh,
couple gets to decide. I mean, because I think I have a way that I want it to look because I have this, you know, I look at things and I can see flaws and I want to make them perfect or perfectly symmetrical or whatever. And he's more random. And that's the beauty of him. And it's totally okay. And so we've learned that some things don't work and some things do work. Like we fold laundry together. We do lots of
oh,
different kinds of projects together, but we've honored each other's space within those projects too. So
I
you just,
like that
it's
that
a
you
series of,
fold laundry.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
he knows how he likes his clothes in his closet and he'll do that.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what are other things that you do where you actually like to do it together?
Well, we love cooking together. It's just fun to talk about our days and to chop vegetables and, he'll grill some meat and we like doing that. We clean up together. Um, oh, let's see. I don't know. There's lots of things we like to do together. We we like to go out and eat too, so that's always fun. But we like to watch movies. We like to watch our shows on TV.
Yeah, we like that too.
Yeah, and so there's just you get to as couples get to figure out what you like to do together, and some things are gonna like not be that great, and some are gonna be amazing, and it's all about the willingness to experiment
Have you
and
ever said,
discover.
"Honey, I really need to show you how to fix a car. So come with me."
No,
No.
well, no, I haven't. And he's so willing to learn, but I'm not a professional anymore. I mean, but that was back in the 90s when cars were less complicated.
Oh,
Now I
okay.
take it to the mechanic or he'll take it to the mechanic. But I mean, there are just certain things that we just hire out now because we're not the professionals at it. We've tried
Yeah.
plumbing, not a success. Fixing a washer and dryer, or at least a dryer, yeah, I don't do electricity. So
Okay.
you learn your limits.
You do. And I was going to tell you, I have one other thing that I've started. I wrote an "I love you" list. And so I started it about Mark. And I'm and if I get frustrated with him, I go in there and I add to the list the things I love about him. So I'm up to number 45.
That's
So I have
amazing.
this ongoing list of all the reasons I love him. I don't He's not doing anything like that for me, I'm sure, because I
Mm-hmm.
just come up with these things in my head suddenly. But it's really cool to look at all the things that he's done for me and
Mm-hmm.
all the ways he loves me. And it's so cool to go over the list and read it
Yeah.
once in a while and go, wow, he's really great. Even if
And
I'm
that
feeling frustrated.
creates, yeah, that creates intimacy for you because you're conscious and you're reading it over and over again and you're getting it in your brain of why you loved him in the first place and why you continue to love.
Yeah.
Just so amazing. I love it.
Yeah, so I know that you probably have a client in the next couple minutes. So is there anything else you wanted to share?
I think it's just more of, I think when we intentionally want to become intimate with our partner, we come to know ourselves in a more intimate way. I think
Okay.
when we're willing to share parts of ourselves with someone else, we learn to love ourselves more. And I think that's really where it's at. Because if we don't learn to love ourselves, it's so much harder to love other people if we're always dissing on us and like we're
Yeah,
not good enough or whatever.
right.
But I mean, it's a wonderful practice to get to know you
I
as
love
you
that.
practice becoming intimate with someone else.
I love it. Where can people find you?
My website is juliemerrillcoaching.com, and same on Facebook, Julie Merrill Coaching, Instagram, LinkedIn.
And Facebook. And Facebook.
And Facebook, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll post that in the show notes. So
awesome.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so much fun.
You are so welcome. It's always wonderful to talk to you.
Maybe we can do this again sometime.
I hope so.
Oh,
always lots of things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
I will. Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.